I've seen some people in the comment section ask a few times, hey Sean, how do I find the right tax accountant for me? And oftentimes as I'm onboarding new clients, they would tell me that, hey, I'm using the tax guide that my friend recommended, or hey, I'm using the one that my family has always used, but they never really thought about, is this the best accountant for me? And I find that interesting because as a tax accountant and a tax strategist myself, I can tell you very, very quickly if a tax professional is good or if they're great at what they do, because sometimes it takes one to know one, right? For example, I used to think that any doctor who went to school and earned a doctorate degree must be qualified enough to talk to me about my health. And it took another doctor to tell me that, hey, there's some good doctors out there and then there's some bad doctors out there. And you can tell by the type of medicine they practice and the tools they use and so on. And so today, what I want to do in this video is help you identify what makes a great tax accountant. So I'm going to go over the difference between a tax preparer and a tax strategist, what questions you should consider asking before you work with any accountant, and what to expect in terms of pricing. So if all that sounds good to you, then all I ever ask is that you hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm. That way other small business owners like you can find this video. All right, as always, I'm gonna have timestamps down in the description below, so feel free to skip ahead if you need to, but I think you will find watching this entire video incredibly valuable. All right, let's go ahead and dive in with number one, what most accountants do. So let me give you some context of education so you know how to choose the right accountant. So in general, you learn how to do accounting by going to college or university, and what we are taught there are the technicalities that go into good accounting best practices. This will be stuff like creating and analyzing financial statements, how to properly categorize transactions and journal entries, business law and ethics, and overall, how to be compliant with the government or the IRS. And usually, if an accountant decides to pursue higher education, such as a master's degree or a CPA license, then they would go even deeper on these same topics. And so a lot of education is geared toward how to be an accountant inside of a corporation, but not a small business, which makes sense because college is very expensive and graduates want to get paid a great salary after they graduate, which big corporations can usually afford to offer. But a portion of these accountants, whether it's after they graduate or after they work in a corporation for a few years, decide that, hey, I want to go out there and start my own accounting firm. And so then they start working with a few new entrepreneurs and small business owners like maybe you. And so a lot of accountants focus on, hey, give me your P&L, give me your tax forms, and let me prepare your tax return, which is great. Everyone needs that. Every small business owner should be filing their taxes on time and accurately. But the problem is most accountants think their job is done after that. All right, Sean, your tax return is prepared. I'll see you next year. But that's just tax preparation, right? And that's exactly what most accountants focus on. That's the compliance piece. That's what we're taught in school. But what about tax strategy? Because there are things that you should be doing throughout the tax year to properly prepare for your next tax season so you are paying fewer taxes. For example, you could be looking at ways to maximize deductions or change up your legal entity structure or different retirement strategies, insurance strategies, illegal tax loopholes, and so on. Which is why when I'm talking to people about working with us, they say stuff to me like, man, I have to tell my accountant about the tax strategies I'm learning on this YouTube channel. Or man, my accountant didn't even know about this tax loophole. Or my personal favorite, I only hear from my accountant during tax season. And so that's something that you should know as you select who you are going to work with. Which, by the way, if you need help with tax planning or tax preparation and you're looking for a good team, then we may be able to help. Go ahead and click the first link down in the description below to learn more about how you can work directly with our team. All right, let's move on to the second part of this video with number two, what questions to ask your potential accountant. So if you are in a position to book a discovery call with an accounting firm, which by the way, sometimes that can be difficult, especially during tax season, because every accountant is busy during tax season, and if they're not, then that's probably a red flag as well. Like every tax season so far, unfortunately, we've had to stop accepting new clients simply because we reach full capacity. Anyway, if you are lucky enough to book a discovery call, then here are some questions I want you to consider asking. Number one, directly ask, do you offer tax planning? All right, not tax preparation, but tax planning. And if their answer is they wait until tax season to help you save on taxes, then that's a red flag, because either A, that accountant doesn't know what they're doing, or B, and even worse, they are not doing things legally and can land you in big trouble with the IRS. In fact, let me tell you one quick story. So for years, my dad and I worked in an office park doing tax returns, and one tax season, a new accountant had moved into that office park. And so his firm was getting tons and tons of new clients. And my dad and I were like, man, what kind of marketing is this guy doing to get so many new clients? Well, it turns out he was getting his clients huge tax refunds, and word got around town fast. But guess what? He was doing some very shady and illegal things. And fast forward 6 months later, after tax season had ended, he left the office park and we never saw him again. And for that next year or so, we had tons of his past clients knocking on our door asking, hey, have you seen so-and-so? I have this letter from the IRS. He really messed me up. And now I have these penalties, I have these interests, and I can't find him anywhere. And of course, we didn't know where he went either. So we ended up having to work with a lot of his past clients trying to solve this huge mess that he created. So I always tell people to work with a good ethical accountant, because if you don't, it's going to cause you more headache, more inconvenience, and more money in the long term. All right, sorry about that quick side story. Let's get back on track. So ask them if they do offer tax planning. If they say no, don't expect any proactiveness from them. Okay, they don't do tax planning. They're just gonna do your taxes and push you off. If they say yes, then challenge it a little bit with question number 2 and ask directly, how much tax savings do you see on average for your clients? And you want to hear a solid, confident number, okay? You don't want to hear, well, it depends, or I have to look into that and get back to you. No, like for us, I can tell you pretty quickly that on average, our clients are saving somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000 in additional tax payments. Now, the next question, if you're feeling really challenging, is to ask them question number 3. What is the most amount of tax savings they found for one client? That might give you an idea of what level of skill they have when it comes to tax planning. Okay, question number 4 would be, do you work year-round? You may be surprised to find out that many accountants only work during tax season, which typically is from January till about the beginning of May. And this could potentially be why it takes your accountant so long to get back to you during the off season. Even local tax franchises start to close around June-ish. So that's very important for you to know up front. Now, what are some bad questions to ask, right? Well, you don't want to ask a very technical question on a discovery call like, should I be an S corporation? Because that requires more information and more research on you, right? Because in some cases you should, in some cases you shouldn't. It really does depend. There are many factors that go into making any tax recommendation, which is why it's something you should work with someone one-on-one on who totally understands your business and your personal financial situation. Now, another question many people may ask is, are you a CPA? Which is a fine question, but that doesn't give you enough insight into how they work and if they can strategize with you. Like I said in the intro, just because someone is a doctor doesn't mean they are the right doctor for you. And the last question I don't think is super helpful for you to ask is, are you local? Because the federal tax code is where you pay most of your taxes, and generally the state follows the federal. And these days, work is remote, and a great tax strategist can help you anywhere if you're in the United States. All right, so those are some questions to think about asking and maybe some to steer away from. If you have some on your list that I didn't touch on, make sure you tell me down in the comment section below what question you think is very important you ask a tax accountant before you work with them. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the third part of this video with number 3, what to expect with pricing. So when you find a good tax accountant, what should you expect to pay? Let's go ahead and start off with tax preparation. So when you are an individual and you're just filing a 1040 return, then typically you're gonna pay somewhere in the ballpark of $300 to $1,000. And that $1,000 upper limit is really reserved for people who have a lot of things going on, like some rental property, maybe some stocks, some crypto, and so on. Now, when you are filing a business tax return, the price really starts to shoot up somewhere between $1,000 to $3,500, which really depends on if you are a single member LLC, an S Corp or C Corp, if you have any other partnerships, and so on. So that's tax preparation. On the tax planning side of things, according to a survey from Intuit, tax planning can cost 5 times more than tax preparation. So on the super low end, it costs about $2,500, and on average, I think it costs about $5,000. And on the high end, I mean, some people will charge you 1% of your total revenue, which means if you're making $1 million or more, then you should expect to pay $10,000 and upward. Now you may be thinking to yourself, man, I don't know, Sean, I don't think I need any tax planning. Well, I want you to consider this. Okay, many small business owners overpay in taxes simply because they don't know how to leverage the tax code like the rich and the wealthy do. Think about former President Trump, for example, and how he almost paid nothing in taxes, but we know he makes millions of dollars. So yes, tax planning may cost $5,000, but what if you save $10,000, $25,000, $50,000 in additional tax payments? What would that mean for you? Okay, usually that means a positive return on investment. So this is something where I don't want you to just think about the cost, but also think about your returns. All right, and lastly, when it comes to ongoing tax consultation or tax advisory, on average, that's about $175 per hour. But for really experienced tax strategists like myself, my rate starts at $500 an hour, and more experience means more money. All right, so I hope the video was great. I'm a bit sick, so I know my words sound a bit muffled. Please forgive me on that, and I hope you could tolerate some of my shameless plugs. Coming up next, I have 2 more videos you may enjoy as well, so check those out if you haven't already, and I'll see you over there.